Musicals, while still popular to an extent, are not quite as popular as they once were. I mean, there have been eras such as in the 60s and 70s with hits like West Side Story, The King and I, and especially The Sound of Music, and in the mid-late 2000s with hits like Moulin Rouge, Hairspray, and Sweeney Todd, where musicals were a huge money printer for Hollywood to coast on. But as the demand for movies to be more grounded in reality started to grow, and as music itself has evolved beyond what it used to be, if you can call it that, musicals, at least in their traditional form, haven't struck as strong of a chord with audiences as they once did. Yet there are clearly still plenty of filmmakers out there with an interest in making musicals, as musicals continue to be a part of our film lineup year after year, possibly because of the potential to promote a movie and a soundtrack at the same time, possibly because Hollywood's trying to revive a moneymaker from the good old days, much like another dead horse that, okay, I'm actually kinda glad isn't really dead, or maybe it's genuinely because filmmakers simply want to make musicals, which I'm definitely down for, don't get me wrong. However, Hollywood's solution to this, as recently reported on by several outlets, is the stupidest idea I've heard in the history of their existence. See, their bridge between the filmmakers who want to make musicals and audiences who need to see their movies but presumably have no interest in seeing musicals, which we'll get to in a second, with the exception of the live-action remakes of Disney Renaissance films and some recent animated musicals, is to hide the fact that their film is a musical from audiences, which is kind of like having an action trailer with no action scenes, so that audiences will potentially have an interest in seeing their film only to go, surprise, it's a musical. They do this by not having any of the songs in the trailers, even if the actors are stepping to the beat of the score they do include, not including any songwriters in the credits for their trailers, again, save for the live-action Disney remakes and some animated films like Wish, and sometimes, like with Frozen for instance, advertising the film as something entirely different. In some instances this would work, like I was surprised when Rapunzel in Tangled started singing her first song as I thought I would just be getting another slapstick-driven animated film, but whether Hollywood is starting to ease away from the concealment or audiences are simply catching on to their tactics, most likely the latter, said tactics are not working on them. Over 70% of audiences went into the new Mean Girls fully aware that it was a musical, which it doesn't take Sherlock fucking Holmes to see the note in this logo, guys. And, like I said earlier, in trailers like West Side Story and Encanto, you can see the actors dancing more than they're just walking, as well as in environments where dancing wouldn't normally be warranted. More blatantly than all that, though, is the fact that films like Wonka, West Side Story, and Lyle Lyle Crocodile are all based on well-known musicals. What is this, just a gritty reboot that takes out the one element that made those sources charming and memorable? Give me a break, guys. So if doing a terrible job to hide the most passionate aspect of your film that really should be the draw of your film isn't the bridge between filmmakers that want to make musicals and audiences that you claim don't want to see musicals, what should the bridge be? Can there be a bridge? Or does Hollywood just need to stop making musicals altogether since it's clear that audiences don't want to see musicals? Well, that's under the false assumption that audiences don't want to see musicals, falsified by Mean Girls almost making its budget back in its first weekend and Wonka becoming the highest grossing movie to have Willy Wonka in it, as well as falsely made simply because audiences didn't want to see Cats. Yeah, that's about where this decline of interest in musicals started. You really nailed that analysis there, guys. It's not that it was the most obviously bad idea to make Cats into a live-action movie with hideous-looking CGI. No, it was just that it was a musical. Not to mention, after we just got done with a year of overexpensive blockbusters where Hollywood spent money to make money, hey, I got a secret for you. Because of musicals' theatrical nature and the fact that audiences are fully aware that what they're seeing isn't supposed to be real, this ended up being cheaper than this. If filmmakers still want to make musicals, not only do I think Hollywood needs to let them, as that kind of passionate filmmaking is a huge rarity in modern filmmaking, but they also need to advertise the films for what they are and not just what Hollywood thinks that audiences want. Partially because both Hollywood and the audiences themselves are kind of terrible at knowing what audiences want until it's right there in front of them, but also because it's only fair and a much smoother marketing tactic to let audiences decide what they want. And as proven by all these successes we've been talking about, I firmly believe audiences do still enjoy musicals, they just don't enjoy bad musicals. And bombs like In the Heights or West Side Story only became bombs partially because of the pandemic, but also because they were hidden as the musical events they were rather than just letting audiences decide for themselves. Trying to fool your audiences is not only going to partially create a distrust, which some musical filmmakers are really not doing themselves any favors by creating, but it's mostly just going to make everyone in Hollywood look like a fool for even trying. I enjoy realism as much as the next guy, but the magic of filmmaking filmmaking isn't necessarily in fooling audiences into thinking what is on the screen is real. It's about fooling audiences into forgetting they're even watching a screen in the first place, by sucking them into a world of awe and wonder. And while the audience that thought that such a world consisted of cheesy theatrics and musical numbers was perhaps bigger at other points than it is now, the numbers are clearly showing that the profitable audience is still out there. Heck, the fact that some of the biggest hits of 2023 included Barbie and Wonka kind of indicates more of an openness for cheesy theatrics than ever before. As I and several other editorialists have been saying about every freaking film in every freaking genre, the key to success isn't making more of this and less of this, it's making a good film and showing your film as the good film that it is. Again, any advertiser who thinks that audiences skipped over Cats because it was a musical needs to get an obvious pun scam. Music is, has been, and most likely always will be a huge component of the success of a film, and in their greatest form, musicals can be both a passionate swell of wonder and awe, as well as a perfect commercial outlet to sell both a film and a soundtrack. Who in their right mind would want to hide a film like that from audiences? That kind of passion and awe is exactly the kind of thing that audiences like to see in any film and any advertising for a film, and it's also the kind of thing that audiences like to come back to see again and again and again. And we'd be more likely to see that kind of passion if Hollywood would just get into harmony with the rest of us, instead of trying to be the one-man band that it's trying to be.